So for me, the retail experience would be a bit too personal and a bit too creepy if I were to walk into store and was greeted by name by the store assistant, so hi Rhianne, and then he or she could tell me that, I know you're going on holiday to Val d'Isere, I know you're going skiing, I could recommend you this coat for the resort because I know that the weather's going to be this next week, and if you might want to go to this restaurant, or one of my other customers has stayed here. And I think that would be a step too far for me. That would be quite freaky, and I'd feel very uncomfortable with the fact that a retailer was using that much of my information without my knowledge.
Do you have a level that you think would be acceptable? Would you be happy for that store assistant to know who you are and what you've previously bought?
Yes, I think there's a way to do it face to face. I think online, people are quite comfortable with the fact that you're going to be retargeted with things that you might have bought, and you might be targeted with ads. Yeah. In store, I think it's a slightly different experience.
It's interesting that you were saying about the fact you find it a little bit, you'd find it off-putting, freaky, I think was the term you used, when you walked into a store. If the people know your name and they know where you're going and they know what you like and they're able to match all of that up with what they had, which I guess from a retailer's perspective is exactly what they want to do. The reason retailers want to get up close and personal with their customers isn't because they've got a mission that they want to be seen to be really friendly with their customers. At the end of the day, they want to sell them more. A direct comparison would be when you go into a restaurant that you frequent regularly, then you walk through the door and the maitre d' meets you and they welcome you by name. They take you to the table that you usually have when you're in that restaurant, and they remember the wine that you have. People say that's the art, the skill of a good maitre d', and the reason that's important is that we've all been in that environment, and actually it makes you feel very, very good as a customer and actually builds your loyalty to that particular brand. It's interesting that maybe at the moment we are not ready as customers to have that same level of service in a shop.
But as time goes on, that is something that we might be doing. Our acceptance of different norms will change, and it might be something that we're willing to accept and think, actually, that's a really personalised experience they've given me, they know me. And is it a generational gap as well?
I think it's part of the evolution of the in-store customer experience. When you think, historically, that wasn't it. When historically, I guess, it probably was closer to that. When you used to go in, if you were a man and you used to go to your regular tailor, the tailor would know your name, they would know your size, they would know the colours that you wanted, which actually is where retailers say they want to get to now. That's really got to start with, how do you want to engage with your customer, which goes back to where we started from, which was when a customer walks into a store, what do you want to be able to give them? And it's not just a case of what you could give them, because seemingly you give them anything. You could really go down to the level of, hi Rhianne, going to Val d'Isere next week, fantastic. We've seen that you're going with your boyfriend, and we've seen that you've already bought your ski jacket. You look great, by the way, because we've looked at your Facebook page. Right, see you later. I'm off, because that doesn't appeal to me. So it's actually, before you start mapping the data, start thinking about delivering something. That's the first bit, because if you could go out and do that. You've got to get that bit right, otherwise you invest lots and lots of money and lots of time in developing something that you pat yourself on the back. It's brilliant. When our customers go in the store, we know all about them. We know more about them than they do. And actually what you find is it's easier to engage with your customers because you'll have less and less, because they just won't go near you because they'll be freaked out by the whole experience. So we started off by talking about the negatives, what we wouldn't want, about the slightly freaky, over familiar member of staff in the store. And now we're saying, actually, there is a part for this to play. It's just going to take a lot of time. So maybe, I think there's definitely a case that before a retailer should go out there and say, this is what we want to do, they really need to think about lots of different factors before the first piece of code's cut, or the first bit of access to big data.
For more insight, visit retail-assist.co.uk.